So, picking up where we left off, we're still looking at the kind of the historical context of sociology and what are the important concepts that define the discipline. I previously mentioned Max Weber, Emile Durkheim, Karl Marx, Harry Martineau, Auguste Comte, Georg Simmel. They're all social theorists, and they in turn represent social theories. Emile Durkheim represents functionalism. Conflict theory, of course, is Karl Marx. Feminist theory is a derivative of conflict theory. Symbolic interactionism, we're looking at Cooley and Mead. Postmodernism, we're looking at the bifurcation of the discipline itself, almost moving towards a completely interpretive approach to understanding reality, where everyone's facts are as important as everyone else's facts, or everyone's interpretations are as important as the facts themselves. And then ultimately this leads us to Merton's mid-range theories, and all of these are looking at the same kinds of social phenomenon, but they're looking at them in different ways, and they're looking at them for different things as well. For example, we could ask what the function of education is, if education is the result of conflict or if it causes conflict, what symbolic relationships are present in education, is a fact actually even attainable? So having these different theories is like having a different pair of glasses. You have one pair for reading, you have a pair for driving, you have a pair for seeing long distances, sunglasses, safety glasses, and you're looking through each pair, and you're going to come up with a different set of assumptions about reality. American sociology is also another important aspect of the development of sociology, especially for us. We live in the United States, and the importance of the transition from European sociology to American sociology is we're moving more from this theoretical framework, this theoretical way of looking at sociology, to a more applied. So early American sociology becomes prominent in the University of Chicago. What we see here is researchers like Robert Park, Charles Hilton Cooley, George Herbert Mead, W.I. Thomas, W.B. Du Bois, Jane Addams. They're all going out into the city of Chicago in and of itself, and they see this as their theoretical proving ground, if you will. They come up with certain ideas of maybe how society works, and then they go out to see if they're proven in society itself, or they go out in society, observe behavior, and come up with ways to think about what they observe. But they're doing this in a very applied way. They're asking very practical, relevant questions, and they're trying to understand what this urban structure actually looks like. Chicago School focuses on empirical research with the belief that people's behaviors and personalities are shaped by their social and physical environments. So this idea of structure and agency, this idea of using the sociological imagination, which of course has not come about so in the early 1900s yet. Remember, C. Wright Mills comes up with the idea of sociological imagination in 1959, but they are going out and they're using this idea of identity, which really hadn't been hammered out yet as far as what identity actually was in relationship to the overall social landscape. Social and physical environments are important to that social development and that personality development. Sociology has some cousins as well. Sociology focuses on making comparisons across cases to find patterns and create hypotheses about how societies work now or how they've worked in the past. Sociology looks at how individuals interact with one another as well as how groups, small and large, interact with one another. So really, in many respects, the sociology is the attempt to understand the individual within the larger social context. This idea of structure and agency that certainly has not been hammered out or discussed in the early 1900s, but will begin to take shape as sociology develops over time, both in the United States and in Europe. Some distinctions that are important, but there's some important distinctions, but there's also a lot of overlap that exists between the work done in different academic disciplines like history and anthropology, psychology and biology, political science, of course. These disciplines marry up to sociology in many ways. Cultural anthropology, in particular, tends to focus on more particular circumstances where sociology itself is looking at maybe the particulars, but to understand the larger social context that those particulars take shape in. Psychology and biology examine things of a more micro level than sociology does, and economics is an entirely quantitative discipline. When we think of psychology, the way that sociology has been described in contrast to psychology in and of itself is that psychology tends to look at the individual as the place to look for explanation, whereas sociology looks at the larger society. And that's a bit disingenuous because within sociology you have social psychology, which is trying to emphasize the importance of both that agency combined with structure. And of course, political science focuses on one aspect of social relations, i.e. power, and it doesn't pay much attention to the other aspects of that power, or that are important to developing a social landscape or society at large. Julia Adams, has an interview. I'd like for you to look at it. I'll list it in chapter 1 as well. It's looking at the historical comparative sociologist in contrast. Why are they different and how are they similar to historians? So please check that out. And last but not least, we have microsociology versus macrosociology. This is another important set of concepts in the discipline of sociology. Microsociology understands local interactional context, focusing on face-to-face encounters and gathering data through participant observations and in-depth interviews. Macrosociology, on the other hand, looks at social dynamics across whole societies or large parts of them and often relies on statistical analysis to do so. For example, a sociologist might be interested in knowing how an individual makes the decision to go to college. It would be helpful to sit down with that person and talk. This would be a micro-level analysis or an example of microsociology. On the other hand, if a sociologist wanted to know how a number of people made the decision to go to college last year, It would be impossible to sit down with each person and ask. So looking at statistical data would be more efficient. This would be an example of macro level studies or an example of macro sociology. So that is chapter 1. Please also take a look at the beginning lecture for this section on what is truth, and let's get it on.